Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I have with me here one of my besties, Candice. Some of you may remember her from my all-female live stream. She came onto the panel. So Candice and I go way back. We have been friends since 7th grade.
Yes.
Right? So that makes...
more than half our life.
Yeah, that's basically 20 years. Like literally, because 2000 was the year we went into middle school, right?
Oh, wow.
So literally like 20 years. Wow. So
and you look the same. Did we grow up?
Yo, it's crazy. So yeah, y'all have heard me mention before my group of friends, and you know, we were in the same little clique in high school. So we go way back.
D Squad.
Yes, that was our name, D Squad. D Squad.
It stood for donut.
Yes,
to make that clear.
Yes. Make that clear. So, Candice, you have basically kind of grown up being very much around, you know, my family. I mean, I've been around yours too, but I feel like you've been around my family a lot more.
Yes, I was always at your house. That is a fact.
Candice was always at my house. I think your mom would get a little upset sometimes.
She was. She was like, why are you always at Christina's? Can you eat at your house? I'm sure her family's like, no, they like me. It's good. They want me there.
Yeah, I know you'd always be real excited to come over and eat rice.
It's my favorite because my mom never cooked it. Hope she doesn't see this. Mom, I do appreciate your cooking. But also, it was nice to be able to, like, eat some of your food. And that was, like, me being exposed to, like, Dominican food, like, for the first time. And I like food, so... That was also a treat.
Yeah, and you even like started coming to like our Christmas Eve parties on the 24th. You kind of became like a regular there.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned this on the live that you were on. Like when like you danced bachata and stuff. You danced just like one of us. Okay. Candice, you see her on the dance floor, you wouldn't even think she's African American. You would think she's Dominican. Okay.
I do like to get down.
Yeah. And I think you even said before that people have thought that you were Dominican, right?
Yes, until I start to speak. Then they're like, oh, gringa.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Our friends group in general was very diverse.
Super diverse.
You know, we were all like
United Nations type of situation.
Right. We were all like, you know, melanated or black women, but different cultures. So, how was that for you, you know, being, you know, an African American, but being exposed to, you know, Dominican culture and then like Sudanese culture and, you know, whatever else? How was that for you? Like, did you have fun experiencing other cultures and being able to learn more about them? Like, do you feel that it made you more cultured in a way?
So I definitely appreciated being able to be exposed to all these cultures at an early age. And I felt like it's important because a lot of times you hear black and it's such a broad category.
Yeah.
Like, so many people fall underneath that category. But by me being exposed to you as, like, an Afro-Latino and some of my friends who was, like, African but different African descents, like Sudanese, Ethiopian, Ghana, Congo, wherever they're from, it's, like, to really just experience, like, the vast difference, the spectrum of being black and just the different cultures within that. And so I always really appreciated like learning the different cultures, the food, of course. But there were some similarities, but there's also like differences. Yeah. And I think that whenever you really take a chance and you get to know someone's culture, you become like enlightened, you learn more about their culture, and you start to see their differences not as like a negative, but just as something that like as a human thing, like they have differences, I have differences, but everyone has some type of culture, some type of belief, moral system. And like, I feel like that's actually sometimes how you grow closer to someone by learning more about them. Right. And I just love like learning, like, cause I feel like I'm more knowledgeable, but I also feel like I can adapt to a lot of situations with a variety of people because like I have been exposed to so many different cultures, like when it comes to that. And I also feel like I'm respectful of that. Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes that can be an issue as well. Sometimes when people are different cultures, sometimes people are very proud of who they are. Yeah. And that's great. But there's a difference to be proud of who you are and then put down other people because they aren't like you or they don't share your culture. To just be proud of who you are, share your culture with other people, and then also allow them to share their culture and welcome that as well. Yeah. And so I just feel like from that experience that I'm able to like adapt into a variety of situations with people of all backgrounds, because I enjoy getting to know people, getting to know the background, and also I respect their culture and I want them to know that I respect them because I want that same respect back. So kind of like treating people the way you want to be treated type of situation.
Okay. So with all that being said, I think most people know that Black American culture specifically is like very influential literally across the world. Like, you know, I hear people say all the time, Black American culture is like the most imitated, the most replicated, and all that. But along with that comes a lot of like, I guess you could say cultural appropriation and things like that. Do you ever see that as an issue? Because I feel like generally speaking, most Black Americans are very open with their culture. But, and literally, I mean, everybody participates in Black culture. Everybody listens to R&B, hip hop, rap, whatever it is. But do you ever feel like, again, people are appropriating it and people want to participate in it, but at the same time, they're just disrespectful towards y'all? Like, do you ever have those type of thoughts?
I do. And, what is it? Appropriation is real. So there's sometimes that it's like, I can't remember who made this comment, but I remember seeing it posted one time about how they wish that the way that people love Black culture, they would love Black people. So it's like, as far as like adapting certain things, like the culture, it's like, oh, it's so rich. It has this, it has that. I love that. But how do you love the culture but not love the people? Type of situation. And then, so I feel like, you know, for people who have a fondness towards Black culture, like that should translate to the Black people as well. And when that doesn't, that's definitely an issue for me. Because it's like, oh, you're okay with adapting certain things, with maybe certain features that you feel like are associated with Black people, or certain music, certain foods, but you definitely don't want to be associated with a Black person, or you're not standing up when you see that issues or injustices are happening to Black people. So there's a divide there. So I feel like that's definitely an issue, especially in America. And I feel like that's one that really needs to be addressed and looked at, because when you think about in America, there's so many like ethnic groups that have been disrespected and have like been caused harm to from America, white America in general. But when you look at like African Americans, like there's no other ethnic group that has like dealt with that severity, with like that level of like atrocities that has occurred to them in America. And I feel like it kind of stems into like other issues that are happening, but like with Black Lives Matter and where people are saying like, oh, pro-Black and all these other things. I'm like, I feel like there's just so much miscommunication around that it really needs to be an open like conversation in order to address some of these issues. Because I feel like people like on a surface level, they like it, but then when it starts to get deeper and you have to like dissect some issues, people get uncomfortable, they start to shy away, or they're like, they don't want to talk about it, or since they're uncomfortable, they try to like dismiss. And from doing that, that's part of the issue. So I definitely see it as an issue when someone wants to accept part of us, but not all of us.
No, that's something I definitely see happening. And like you said, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, y'all love our culture, you know, Black Americans speaking, but you don't love us, or you try to distance yourselves from us, especially like, you know, other, let's say, Black immigrant groups. And, you know, that's something I've witnessed too, and I know that it is a real issue. And I think a lot of it does have to do with people come here and they realize real quick, like the way Black Americans are viewed in society and the stereotypes and all that. And so they're like, okay, I'm Black, but I'm not that type of Black.
Right. You know? And I've actually heard Black people say that. I'm like, stop. That's like making those comments add to the problem. Like, don't feel like you have to, just to clarify, like, I'm Black, but I'm not ghetto Black. I'm Black. I'm like, I don't need to justify. I don't need to explain the type of Black that I am. I'm Black, period. And if someone doesn't like it, if they have an issue with it, that's a personal problem that they need to address. because I'm like, that stems from something else. Like, let's unpack that problem that you got there. But
yeah. Which, I mean, the term or the identifier Black, I mean, there's just so much behind that as well. And something that's come up a lot, at least in my little YouTube space, is non-American Black people saying that they don't identify as Black because the term Black to them usually means African American, which I think there's some validity to that. But there's also the side of they just don't want to be associated with Black Americans. I mean, I think that is part of it. But because I think back to like me, like I feel like I wasn't usually referred to as Black. Like a lot of times y'all called me Spanish, or like I didn't specifically remember you saying that I wasn't Black, that I was Dominican, but I knew that what you meant by that was African American. But do you feel like that's changing though? Because how can I say? I feel like the more people are becoming culturally aware, I guess people are more careful with how they use the word Black. I don't know. But it's just interesting because even though like I always wrote Black as my race, say on like, I don't know, a job application or whatever it was, at the same time I didn't really grow up identifying as that. It was always, oh, I'm just Dominican.
Right.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like, especially in today's age, that there has been a lot of discussion and enlightenment and more education around it. So I feel like in the past it was like, oftentimes if I would just say Black and I would use that to reference me being African American, quote unquote.
Like I remember even certain Africans, we would say, oh, they're not Black.
Right.
Even though they're Black, but
right. And they would be like, oh, like they would actually like distinguish and say which country they're from. Yeah. And so a lot of times, like when I would use it, it was like really referencing like ethnicity as part of it, besides instead of race. Yeah. So when I would say Black, I would kind of use it as like an all like, oh yeah, I'm Black, I'm African American. But if it was like my friends or introducing someone, I might say, oh no, she's not Black, she's like Dominican, or she's Ethiopian, she's from the Congo. So it's like, not that they aren't Black, but usually it was just to kind of like address the ethnicity. But then it's such a sensitive subject as well. I realized that more like sometimes I would give more information, like, or Afro Latino, like with ethnicity, like she's Dominican, but race is Black, like. And then some people feel like, oh, I shouldn't have to do all that. But I feel like it's important because some people feel like if they just identify as Black, they're like dismissing like their culture, and like they're proud of their culture, so they want to say that too. And I understand that. So I understand maybe like addressing both or saying it. For me, I don't have that like privilege type of thing because I can't say I'm from this country. So I just say Black because it's like I can't say that I'm like South African, or I can't reference a country that I'm from besides America. So it's like Black.
Okay, yeah, I remember hearing you say that. I'm just Black. Which that kind of leads into one of my questions. Okay, so I find it interesting when I do hear Black Americans say something like that. Well, they don't have like a country, but I'm like, but isn't the United States your country? Okay, so let me backtrack. Okay, so first off, do you have a preference whether you identify as like African American or Black American or just American? I mean, I don't think you identify as just American.
No.
Okay, so leave that one out.
Don't sound like Raven Simone. No.
So
sit down. Right?
Because I'm also seeing more, at least online, I am seeing more Black people kind of shifting towards I'm just American. Like, this is my country. My people helped build this country. I'm just American. But, okay, so between Black American and African American, do you have a preference? Because I see there's different ideologies when it comes to that, too.
It definitely is. So I just always identified as African American, but it was to clarify. Because it's just like, otherwise, like, so with everything that happened historically, there's also, like, part of, like identity crisis with as far as, like, how do you identify yourself? But I always just saw myself as African American because I'm like of African descent. But technically, for decades, my family has been here. So it's not really traced to anywhere else. So from the country that I'm from, I am American. So I would do that to clarify, to distinguish this as I'm African American. But it's not more of like, oh, so proud as far as like the American part. because there's so many issues associated with that. But I am proud of what my people have been able to overcome despite all of the odds stacked against us. So if I'm saying I'm a proud African American, it's because I'm proud of what we've been able to overcome.
Okay, gotcha.
Come in America, and knowing like, yeah, we did help build it. Like slaves were, they were White House, like all the stuff in DC, not there. Would have been straw houses still, probably little sticks. Like,
yeah.
So I've always identified as African American, but I know it's like deeply rooted in other issues. So I understand why some people may have an issue with that, and I know where it comes from.
Right. Okay, so that was something else I kind of wanted to get into, like how you, like as a Black woman, how you feel when it comes to, you know, being an American, because again, your family roots, it goes back, I'm assuming a few hundred years to the United States. So, but I can see how you might not feel that sense of pride necessarily in the American part because of what your people have been through. And I do think the African American experience is very unique. So even though like in the Caribbean or Latin America or whatever else, I mean, we went through slavery and all that stuff too, but I guess because of the way our histories played out, which was a little different, most African descent people from these countries, for the most part, still feel a very strong sense of pride in their nationality. Whereas with, again, Black Americans or African Americans, however you want to identify, there's like a split between how y'all feel about that. So yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. So your family specifically, have they always been in this area as far as you know, like the DC, VA area?
No, so most of my family is actually from Warrenton, North Carolina. And then like some parts moved to the DMV area. So like more of like my immediate family, aunts and uncles, like they're here, but then like my extended family, most of them are from Warrenton, North Carolina.
Okay. I feel like that a lot of people that are here in the Virginia area, actually a lot of their families come from North Carolina. I feel like I hear that a lot. So you kind of mentioned already like being pro-Black. So do you consider yourself pro-Black?
So based on the definition of what being pro-Black is, as far as like, you know, wanting to better the Black community, whether that's like financially, through education, through like just seeking justice, then it would be yes. Because like I feel like that's important, and because of everything that we've been through, all the obstacles that are still in place, I feel like, you know, it's important to like, that should be the goal as far as, so, but then I feel like there's a lot of issues around that word. So people hear pro-Black and they think, oh, they're extreme. Oh, they don't care about other races. They don't care about anybody but themselves. And I feel like that part needs to be, like a conversation needs to be had around that part. So it's like, just because someone's pro something doesn't mean that they are anti something else.
Yes, I've said that a lot of times too. Like in my case, like, because you know, when it comes to Dominicans, there are Dominicans that are, for example, very anti-Haitian. But I've always said, I don't need to be anti-Haitian in order to be pro-Dominican. You know, like that's just stupid to me. But anyways, continue.
Right. Because people like, you can take pride in who you are. You could take pride in wanting to better your people, and that doesn't mean that in doing so that means that you're going to have to step over other people, or you're going to have to take from someone else, or you need them to not be bettered in order to get better. And I feel like, so when I read something recently that really like resonated with me, and like the person was talking about how being pro-Black is also being pro-white. So she was saying like, I don't have to be like, I'm pro-Black, so that means I'm not anti-white, because she was like, when she does that, it kind of almost like addresses the fragility of like the white person, like, oh, I have to explain it to you in a way where you're more comfortable. I have to like address it because you're like fragile around some of these harsh conversations. But it was really just like addressing the fact of like, when you're being pro-Black, when you want to better the health and the wealth, the security, the justice for Black people, because we know what has happened to them in America, it is a humanity issue. So by being pro them and bettering them as a person, it is actually pro-white as well. It betters other races when we think about it as just giving basic human rights and needs to people. So she was like, so like to address being pro-black, it's pro-white too. If we really want to talk about like what are these basic necessities and like what should we make sure that people have access to, and when we see humans don't have access to, we're making sure that we're giving it to them, that we're actively working to build. Then she was like, that's a humanity issue. And so I really like resonated with that, because I was like, yeah, like, because I felt like what she was saying really explained like my mentality around it. And so it's like being like that pro-black, like it's a humanity issue. So it addresses like when you better one person, it's almost like you're bettering the other. Or sometimes people have the mentality that they're not going to help someone because in helping them might bring them down, or might like put them in a position that they're no longer going to be like at a higher stance. And it's like, when you really think about humans, when you better them, that means it's better for society. It's better overall. And so if you were talking about people being active participants in society, then you have to make sure that they have the resources and the skills that they need so they can be active participants in society. So like I'm an educator, so I work with youth. And one of the things that I have seen is kind of like this, like, I don't know, like a divide in between like students like identifying, especially like when they're youth, they're going through like this phase of discovery, of just discovering who they are. And I've seen with like minority youth, like a divide between like them feeling like who they like identifying like or discovering who they are as a person, or who they want to be or who they could be, in contrast to how society sees them, what is realistic for them, what opportunities are actually present for them, what resources are present. And so though they may like, oh, I would love to be a doctor, if the contrast is like the resources that they have, the schooling that they have, which is funded from like their community, right? If the schooling is not really preparing them to be like that, that's already a hit against them. If society's already like, because of what you look like, it's going to be 10 times harder for you to even get accepted into the college, to get an internship. And then when you get a job, you're always going to have to prove yourself, and you're going to be paid at a lower rate. It's like all these things that are stacked against them. So these odds that you have to like, that I feel like Black people, African Americans have to constantly battle against. And then for some people, when they be like, oh, people are in certain areas, they're in poverty because, you know, they don't care or they're not doing enough. It's like that bothers me when we talk about, when someone says like just blatantly stupid comments like that, because you really have to look, well, let's go ahead and look at what has occurred, what has led communities to be in this situation and not have the resources decade after decade that they need to be successful. And then people think that once someone is successful, like that's the exception to the rule, because it's not. Because also, if you look at the data, and when we talk about like specifically Black women, African American women, like when you look at the data, a lot of like African American women are educated, but there's still like this stereotype that like African American women are ignorant, that they're loud, that they're disrespectful, that they don't know how to submit, like, you know, all these things associated with them. And it's like these stereotypes are just doing harm. So like I like see issues with youth trying to like figure out who they are, identify who they are, and like navigate their way through it. But then I also see issues like also specifically with Black women. Like I feel like we're hit the hardest. And I know like some Black men would be, and when I say Black, I'm talking about African American, so I don't want to clarify. And because everyone's experiences shapes their point of view.
Yes.
Right? So for my experience as an African American woman, I can say that I feel like the African American woman is the most disrespected and unprotected person in America. Because not only does the African American woman have to deal with like the issues that Black men have to deal with when it comes to like laws and order and everything like that, we also have to deal with gender discrimination. So like as being a woman. And then being a Black woman, when you put those two words together, it's just a whole nother like set of stereotypes and obstacles that come from just like that word, like that comes from being identified as that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. You said a lot right there.
I was like, I don't know how I got here, but I was feeling something, and
yes,
it just
that was good.
It took over. That happens at times.
Yeah, but as far as what you're saying about Black women, I mean, I remember not that long ago I saw an article. It was saying something about Black women being among the most educated group in America, and it's funny because, you know, people, especially online, they like to bring up all the stereotypes and all that. But I feel like you said, how your experience kind of shapes your perception, or like how you perceive the reality of certain things. Like when I think back to our friends group, we were all we were all in AP classes. Like, you know, we were like a smart group of women. And when I think back, I'm like, the Black women that I knew, they were not ratchet or ghetto at all. Like, it's just so funny how, I don't know, people, they just get so sucked into the stereotypes. And that's not to say that there aren't some that fit them, because, you know, whatever, there is. But I don't know, at least in my experience, that's not what I saw. I didn't see so many of the stereotypical Black women or whatever. And it's funny because when we did see the few, they stood out. Like, I don't know if you remember those DC girls that came to Falls Church, and they stood out because we were like,
and they didn't like us.
They're so different.
They also was not fans of us. I remember hearing a couple of words coming my way because of how I behaved, and I guess how I was behaving as an African American woman. And then that being an issue. So within the race of being Black, within African Americans, we do have our own issues when it comes to identity, because there's a spectrum of like what it is to be African American. That's with any group. That's with any group, right? Yeah. So that looks very different. So when we talk about these stereotypes, and people, like, we know stereotypes are not based on reason. Stereotypes is taking one group and associate attributes or characteristics that you see in certain types of people, and then categorizing all of those people in that group under that. I'm like, in any group you can find some ratchet people. You can find, like, literally in any group you can find some people that, you know, are rude, disrespectful, have no regards towards authority, who act X, Y, and Z. That's a type of person issue, not a race issue. And like, that's why, like, I also feel like our friend group connected, because like it was always about the character of the person. So like when Martin Luther King talks about like the character of the person, that is really what it is. I connect with people who I feel like my character connects with them. Yes. We have like, we can relate to certain things as far as like our point of view, how we see the world. Even though we were all from so many different backgrounds and cultures, that was never an issue as far as like, oh, well, I can't be friends with this person, or I can't do this because they're different.
Yeah, that was never an issue.
Right. Never. It's like, okay, you're this background, I'm this background, cool. Like, it doesn't, like, what does that have to do with someone being able to befriend someone or get to know someone? It's like, I have an issue with someone who disrespects me, with someone who's not nice to me, someone who uses me. And that can be from any race. Right. So like, so I just feel like when people have an issue with a whole race of people, I really want to know like why. I would like what, explain it to me. Because I feel like sometimes when people start to explain it, it don't make no sense. And that's how you know, when someone's like, oh, what's the issue? What's the problem? And some people, let's say like the people who raided the Capitol. Let's throw them down as an example. Sometimes if you like hear them in interviews, or like you get like sound bites of them talking, it's like, what is your issue? Like, they don't know. Monkeys. It's like or the things that they are saying about like, oh, certain people taking our jobs, and that's not correct. So then it's like the sense of like information that some people have, it's like so wrong. It's like, you're just making up stuff, or it's like, what is this? Like, because when you unpack it, it's like there's no reason or logic around that. That's how you know it's stupid. Right. That's how you know.
Yeah. And if you also notice, all those white people that were storming the Capitol, there was like a certain type of white people too. Right. Like real bottom of the barrel.
I was like, now you know you over here getting this welfare money. Right. But you like, and again, like when I talk about like, you know, white America, I'm like addressing like the oppression that has happened. And there are certain types of white people that, you know, are extremists, and they like think that it's okay that they have the right to just walk up in the Capitol, take stuff. and then not really have consequences, and then when they do get consequences, cry foul. Like something was done to them unjust.
Yeah.
And it's like, you did that. I was like, the audacity. People, just how they treat us. It's like, you caused it. However, when someone's talking about how someone shouldn't just get shot on the street and be dead because of the way they look, you'd be like, oh, you guys are doing too much. This is not an issue. You aren't proud Americans. You're part of the issue. It's like, how? What? Who's your mother? Who raised you?
Yeah.
Because it's like the stupid, that ignorance really, that ignorance is one thing. It hits me. And I really try to be empathetic to situations, and I try to look at it from someone else's point of view, because I feel like sometimes that's important in order to have meaningful and impactful conversations, right? But there are certain people that they're so far gone that having a conversation with an unreasonable person, you're just gonna end up getting mad, because it's just like there's no type of logic or reason there. I can have a conversation, like I had a conversation with some people who they're Caucasian and they see an issue, but it's still like, because of their privilege, obviously their experience is different, and kind of having those conversations about like why Black Lives Matter, why we don't say all lives matter, and them legit just not knowing. And then once they really thought about it, like they were kind of enlightened and was like, oh wow, I never saw it from that, because they were looking through their lens. So their experience didn't allow them to look through a lens of a Black person. Yeah. However, since they were willing to have the conversation, and the conversation wasn't based on trying to shame them or trying to like degrade them, but really just enlighten, it was able to be a beneficial conversation. So I do try to, okay, let me see their perspective. Okay, they don't know, or they do know, but they don't have that same experience. So let's address it to explain why. But I know some people, I've heard some Black people, African Americans, say that's not their job to have to explain it to people. And I can see that as well. It's not. For me personally, especially being an educator, I don't mind having those conversations if I feel like even if it just makes a difference in one person's life and they can see differently, or they are a bit more enlightened, or they can move in a different way. Then I don't mind having those conversations, but they can be overwhelming. It does take a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So like I said, I can see from both ends. For me personally, I don't mind having those conversations, because I actually feel like it's important in order to identify the issue so that we can address it, then so we can redress it. And there has to be people who are willing to do that. So I can't just cry foul, but then when it's time to talk about why there's issues, I'm like, this is just a little overwhelming, I can't really do that, get into all, so I personally don't mind having those conversations, but it does sometimes take a lot out of you.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure. I know. I mean, just race topics in general would just be very draining, overwhelming.
You always get that one person. It's like, you just came to cause some trouble. You didn't come because you actually wanted to, learn something.
Yeah.
You came because you wanted to be stupid. And you wanted to spread your stupidity and your misery towards other people.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are really draining, because it's like, I try to keep my composure, but then also it's like, there's only about one more time that you're going to you're going to address me. I was also, respect is really important for me. So someone who's disrespectful, someone who's ignorant, those two things, it hits me in a place that sometimes can get me out of my character. But I always say that I try not to let someone else's actions change who I am as a person. So but I'm human, so I actively have to work on that. I actively have to reflect, I actively have to be mindful of that and reflect. And when I see that I'm going in that, or someone who's ignorant is kind of sucking me in, I have to kind of okay, they're purposely doing this. This is what they want, and I have to readdress so that I can then handle myself in a different way, or just dismiss myself from that situation.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so a little earlier you mentioned how the Black woman is the most disrespected and the most unprotected, and this was actually one of my questions, because at least lately, on social media, I have been seeing this conversation happening a lot, among Black women, and them feeling like there's nobody out here to protect us. We only have ourselves, and they feel like the men in y'all's community isn't protecting you either. Do you agree with that? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like as a Black woman, as an African American woman, when you go out, like, is that something you think about? Like, I have to be careful. Like, if something was to happen to me, there's no saying if anybody would help me or whatever the case.
Like
is.
what happened to that lady?
The one
who got beat.
Yeah.
From. Oh, nobody. It was like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Saw the car. Oh, no one. You can't even ride up in your car, try to scare them. But yes, so it is something that, like, I agree with to a certain degree. Okay. So I feel like that, 100%, like, I feel like as an African American woman, I'm not protected. And I am, like we are disrespected sometimes to a level that, like, no one else has had to, like, endure. Like, we've had to endure. But I do believe that there's, like, within that, like, there are certain Black men, certain African American men who they truly, like, care for African American women, and they truly try to make sure that their actions demonstrate that, and that they're actively involved in making sure that we are protected and not disrespected. Again, when we talk about a certain type of person, then there's a type of Black men, whether coons or whatnot, or just, like, who have, like, a bit of self-hate as well, when we can sometimes see that in their dating choices, that I feel like they don't, like, respect us. They don't stand up for us. Because, like, I feel like I've been disrespected before, and sometimes I would turn to my brother, my, like, African American male, and, like, would hope that them seeing that disrespect, that they might say something instead of just standing by silently and letting it happen. Because I know personally, when I see someone disrespecting the African American male, you know, for me, like, I don't do well with, like, with bullying. I don't do well with, like, ignorance. So if I see someone saying something, I'll address it. Now, I know that everyone deals with things in their own way. So addressing it could look different for other people. Some people will verbally do something. People might pull somebody to the side. Someone might share information. It looks different. But I feel like do something. And there have been times where we just, like, I just felt so discouraged, and just, like, I always feel like I have to defend myself. If there's a situation that I get into, I'm gonna have to have my back. And some people could be like, oh, that's with anybody in any situation. But I have seen, like, a theme, like when we talk about African American women and we talk about, like, African American men, there is a significant group of African American men who I just feel like don't stick up for us the same way that when we see an African American man being disrespected, that the African American woman will stand up and be by their side. And even with, like, some pictures or, like, stuff that, like, I can't remember exactly, but I remember, like, a magazine, like, came out, and, like, the way they portrayed the Black woman, and, like, the Black woman was outraged, and, like, the African American man, it was kind of silent on their end. But if it were to have a Black man come out, I'm sure it's like, so it's like, don't just take one side. Don't only speak up when you feel like something's being done wrong for, like, African American man. Like, you know, make sure that it's, like, across the board. Because I know, like, treat people where you want to be treated. And knowing that that's something that we have in common, African American men, African American women, like, this level of disrespect because of how we look, like, how can we not be united? And so when I feel like an African American man is not united with the cause, it does bother me. And then it makes me question why. And then, because whenever someone has a behavior, a behavior is always associated with some type of need. Like, there's always a reason to a behavior. So I always wanted to know why. Like, what is causing this? What is this stemming from? And that's always, like, sometimes I want to have the conversation, like, what? But then they'll take it as, oh, here comes this rude, angry Black woman who's just trying to cause a problem. Because sometimes I'll get identified as that. Oh, I'm upset. Oh, she's just an angry Black woman. Right. Listen to why I'm upset. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like, don't just dismiss what I'm having to say because you're stereotyping me just like society is. I expect more from the Black man. But again, when I'm saying that, it's because I would expect them to expect the same from me. So it's not one-sided. If I see them being disrespected, they should expect me as an African American woman to address it, to stand up to them in some way. Like I said, that can look like a variety of ways, but do something. And so, yeah.
Okay. Do you ever feel like again, I'm going off of things that I hear online, that black women or black American women are like too race loyal, or not race but too loyal to your group, and that a lot of times y'all are kind of, even when it comes to like social issues, because I've seen a lot of black women speaking out against how black women are a lot of times on the front lines of a lot of stuff, and they're like, I'm not gonna be your mule no more, and stuff like that. How do you feel about that?
I feel like sometimes with African American women, we are very like upfront, and we are very like focused on these issues, and sometimes we can be overly loyal to it, but not. So I don't think it's an issue to be loyal to an issue, because if it's an issue, it needs to be like addressed. I think the issue is sometimes where your loyalties lie. Sometimes being loyal to certain people who don't deserve it, versus like, I feel like it's valid to be loyal to an issue, but there are certain people that don't deserve that loyalty, that will try to then, when something happens to them, they expect us to be by their side, but in general, they aren't by our side for the whole cause. So there's certain people that I'm like, nah, help yourself. Like, who was the rapper? Was it A$AP Rocky? Or someone who was like talking about how the black issue, like with all the stuff that was happening with, the black culture and with the police brutality and everything like that, that wasn't his issue. But then when he got like locked up or something in another country, and he wanted people to come to his aid.
I can't remember who it was. I think I remember hearing that story.
I was like, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like a little bit of karma. Now, I don't wish bad on nobody, but at that point, it's like, good luck. Because you, like, so as far as loyalty to certain people, no. But loyalty to the issue, I feel like, regardless, that shouldn't change. Because some people who aren't like that, like, that's a problem that they are going through. But I don't feel like that should impact how, like, us, like, dismissing some things that are actual issues. But I do feel like for certain people, like, those loyalties shouldn't remain in place.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm switching gears a little bit. So I did want to get a little bit into like your dating experience, as a black woman. So, in these times, I think a lot of us have kind of had to resort to like online dating and things like that, especially, with the pandemic and everything.
Indeed.
Yeah, so how has that been like? Like, what groups do you find yourself either being attracted to or getting most attention from as a black woman?
So I feel like I want someone who relates to me. And sometimes when people are attracted to certain things, they're attracted to certain things that they're used to being around or that they see. So I feel like a lot of times I am attracted to black men. They'll understand the struggle, don't have to explain certain things to them. But it's not like something like, I'm not only attracted to black men. I'm attracted to Dominican men, to white men, to Asian men. Like, honestly, a lot of it comes down to the character. I know I've said that a couple times, but character is so important to me. It is. Because I'm like, honestly, at the end of the day, that is what's going to make me be like whether I can be with someone long term or not.
Right.
So I obviously would love to be with like someone who can understand me and identify with me on a level that, because they've had that similar experience, especially if we have children. Like, to be able to like understand what our kids may go through, that's important. However, that doesn't mean that someone can't be empathetic to it if they actually truly care. So for me, like, I'm open, but I do usually get contacted mostly from black men. And then after that, it's either Spanish or like Middle Eastern, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then but then also sometimes I'll get people will write in my box and be like, ask me what type of black I am.
Oh, what type of black? Okay.
I was like, what? I know why, because they're trying to like, I guess, identify ethnicity. Like, and like before, I feel like some people might have been like, so for me, it's all about delivery. So if someone's asking me something because they are just inquiring so that they can know, I'm fine with that. But if someone's asking like because they are trying to inquire so they can decide whether they're going to move forward, like that's like, oh, are you African American or oh no, I don't mess with African American.
Yeah.
So that's different. So sometimes it's about like what is the purpose of it. So sometimes I felt like in clubs, I feel like this happened a lot. They might ask me like what's your background? I'll say African American. They'd be like, huh, really? You don't look that way. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, because I get that a lot. So I don't take offense when someone says that like I don't look African American. I mean, obviously, I feel like I do, but as far as they're talking about features, probably like with some of my features, like when I'm with you, some people think like I'm Dominican. When I'm with Hannah, people think I'm Ethiopian. Like apparently, I can fall under a couple of categories, right? So I don't take that as offense if someone's just like curious and they're just like trying to know. But I do take it offensively when someone be like, really, I wouldn't, you don't seem like you're African American. I'm like, what do you mean seem? Like the way you carry yourself.
Yeah.
No, we're about to have an issue. Because the minute someone says the way you carry yourself, now you're degrading. Like you're saying African American women, you're stereotyping them, carry themselves how? So then I'd be like, how so, Sway? How so? Elaborate. Carry myself how? Like, oh, I remember one white man approached me in McDonald's and was just like, you're not like other black people. I was like, just not gonna let me enjoy my Big Mac today. Just not gonna let me enjoy my Big Mac today. And I was looking around like, other people see this? Other people see this man coming up to my table? And he was just like, you seem very reserved and poised and, not like them ghetto people. I was like, you came to the wrong one. Because I was like,
that was bold.
It was. Because I was like, oh, you think that you gave me a compliment? You think I'm going to be like, yes, master, thank you so much for your compliment that you don't see me as ghetto. First of all, I don't care how you see me. But best believe that when you address black people and you start talking about black people being ghetto and stuff like that, it doesn't matter about whether I see myself as ghetto or not. But I have an issue with trying to stereotype a whole group of people and then having the nerve to come to me like he gave me a compliment.
Wow.
So again, it's all about approach. But for that one, I had to let him know. I was like, excuse me, sir. Apparently you're misguided to think that you're going to talk to me in a way like you're giving me a compliment. I was like, this is ignorance that's coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
I'm like, for you to think that, like, who? Wow. What? I couldn't even. But what's funny is like there was actually some people in the McDonald's. There was like black couple, African American, and they actually started to walk towards my table. And then there was a group of like Caucasian people, and the Caucasian male from the family, he stood up and he was just like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" So there were people, and again, this a black couple and a white person who came and was like, "Hey, what's going on?" Because they recognized that. I guess they heard part of the conversation or they heard my response and they recognized it was an issue. Yeah. So I appreciate, in that case, someone not just standing by and letting stuff happen. But then I know that's not always the case. So it also comes down to the type of person. Right. And again, I know I completely went back to what we were talking about. I didn't even finish. I get a little passionate sometimes, y'all. I'm sorry. It's okay. But to answer the question... After I diverted for a couple of minutes, I get contacted from a variety of people, but mostly from black men. As far as like my interests, it really goes down to once I start to talk to them. There are certain physical things that I like. I like when a man is taller. Like I'm a thick girl. Like I need someone to be a little bit taller. Sometimes if they're like skinny, I just feel like we're gonna be uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean that I've talk to skinny people for. It doesn't mean that because I have a preference that that's the only thing I go for. So there's certain things that physically like attracts my eye, but that's just surface level. So it's so much more to that than me. So that won't stop me from engaging in a conversation because I also just like to converse with people. So it won't stop me in engaging with a conversation, especially for someone who's just wants to talk. So there have been times I've responded to people who physically, like I was not attracted to them at all, but I just appreciate how they started the conversation. And so I was like, I have no problem like conversing with you. Right. I don't know if it's gonna go further than that, but as long as you're being respectful and you're not pressuring, then I'm cool with that. But I have actually met a couple of people online that I was just like, I genuinely connected with. So I actually appreciate that aspect. I feel like 10, 20 years ago was like so taboo. Like, what?
I know.
You met someone online,
Yeah.
you desperate. Now it's just like, wait, you haven't tried online dating?
Yeah, it's kind of like the norm now.
I was like, especially with like quarantine.
Yeah.
I was like, I was in there a bit too often sometimes. Not because I was like seeking someone, but the conversations I was having with people, I connected with women as well, just like on a friendship level. It was nice. And it was people that I was like, I wouldn't have met just in this area. Like, met people, different countries, different states. Like, it's just nice sometimes to like meet people and you connect with them on like a personal level because of their personality.
Right.
So I actually really appreciate like the online platform and how it has grown even more through the quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And, you know, I've experienced this too with certain people that I've met on YouTube. Like, it's like you connect, I guess, not having the physical, I guess, aspect of that, or the physical pressures out the way, it really does make it easier actually to really connect with a person on a deeper level, and to really like hear how they think and kind of get into their head and really see what their thoughts are. Like, it's almost easier to really like create a genuine relationship with someone when you're just talking.
Right, because that physical part is not there to distract.
Right, exactly.
Or to go out to like, oh, these dinners, partying, all this stuff that's distracting from you actually getting to know the person. Because when there's like online, that's all you have, the conversation.
Right.
So like you really get to know people. And then when people really get comfortable, you start to reveal things about yourself that's personal. And it's like, obviously you wouldn't do that unless if there was a level of comfortability that you now have with this person that you haven't technically may have met in person, but like the connection is genuine, the connection is real.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, there's people I've met online that I now consider them like friends, like legit friends. So it's very cool. It's definitely very cool. So, you know, since I'm Dominican, I gotta ask, how's your experience been with the few Dominican men that you've talked to?
So, you know, I definitely think Dominican men are handsome, for sure. I like their swag, for sure. I like to dance, so it's great like when someone can dance. And you know, Dominican people, y'all be getting down. Like, you know, that's definitely a huge part of your culture. Like the camaraderie, the dancing. Like, I actually love how close knit like the community is. And so like there have been a couple of Dominican men that I talked to. There's one currently that I'm like conversing with and getting to know, not someone I met in person, but someone that I've talked to that we just genuinely connect on a deeper level. He has a similar background to me, like as far as education. And so we're able to discuss some things that I was like, I haven't been able to discuss with a man before, just because I've never like dated someone that had like such a specific like background that was so similar to me. But yeah, so it's funny, so currently, you know, conversing with a Dominican man. Nothing serious, but like I said, I appreciate all backgrounds and styles, but I definitely like Dominican men, their swag, like what they have to offer. A lot of them pretty boys. A lot of them pretty boys.
They be want to get you in trouble.
Right, sometimes I'm like, all right, sir, what you want? Like, let's just put it out on the table. What you going for?
Yeah.
Right, but yeah, I definitely can appreciate Dominican man for sure.
Okay, cool.
I also appreciate how sometimes like I feel like they aren't like they can be, I don't know the word, like not hiding their emotion, like they like I don't know,
like very upfront almost with their intention or what they feel.
Maybe, or just certain things, like I don't know, like as far as like how they express themselves. Like I just feel like it's like a level that comes with a level of confidence of who you are, like with a man and masculinity, and it's just like they're confident with that, and so they're like fine with like maybe expressing themselves.
Okay,
and, you know
I
what I'm
feel
saying?
Like what you're saying, yes. Yeah, a lot of them are that way.
That some American like man might be like, oh, I ain't gonna do this, or I'm not gonna, because I'm a man. I'm like, when you're confident with yourself, like you know, like ain't trying to get in no trouble with that comment.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah. All right, so lastly, I wanted to get into your book. Candice here actually wrote a book, y'all, like literally wrote a book. I have it here. It is called Melanin Brown Discovers America. So Candice, tell us a little bit about the background of the book, how you got the idea or the idea for the character, like what is it about?
Yeah, so this is definitely my baby. So Melanin Brown, she's the main character. She's a teenager, and it's pretty much about her kind of witnessing an injustice, a student being bullied because of his beliefs. And through like some guidance from her parents and her experiences with her friends and teachers, but also with her just wanting to treat people the way she wants to be treated, she kind of goes through like this journey of like self-discovery and her figuring out how to address some of these social constructs while coming into a voice of her own. And so there's, it definitely like at the core of it, it's like a theme about like kindness, about treating people the way you want to be treated, but also about how like our differences actually shouldn't bring us apart but draw us together. And so overall, I hope that this book will resonate with people of all backgrounds and races. Obviously, it's focused like of an African American girl, and as you know, Melanin Brown is a play on words, right?
Yeah.
So because of my background and my experiences, but it's also like just address certain social issues. Like I wanted to represent certain social issues that are going on in society, and hopefully be a conversational piece that can be had with youth. So that's part of how I got my idea. So I'm an educator. So I used to work in elementary school. Now I work in middle school. And there's certain things as an educator that we can't touch with a stick when it comes to like politics or certain beliefs. However, I noticed that kids, they absorb their environment. And even if they don't necessarily know or understand certain things that are happening or don't have the vernacular to verbally express it, they are aware of it and they pick up on it and they bring that into the school environment. So it impacts them in the school environment regardless. And being a teacher, to see that and kind of be a gray area of things that I could address with them that I couldn't address with them, I was just like, I really want to do a book that kind of like addresses some of these issues. And I hope that it'll be a series where I can really address like various other issues that are going on in society that kids are impacted from, but it's not necessarily part of our curriculum that we have that we can discuss with the kids. And so I hope, like I say, it could be a conversational piece that we can have with the youth. There are some things in there about equity and equality that I think it's important to really start to have those conversations when kids are younger. I know some people feel like if kids are too young, they really shouldn't be exposed to this. I'm like, oh, you don't know, they are exposed. If you look at the doll test, right? Right. So it's just like they pick up on this. I'm like, and the sooner you have these conversations, like you can make it kid friendly. And that's what I tried to do here. I tried to take a situation that I felt like was an adult problem that impacts students, that impacts kids, and try to make it kid friendly conversation around it, even though there are still some people like might say like some of the ideas or some of the language in there is maybe lends towards a bit of on the older side. But I feel like it's something that can be, you know, depending on the age group, depending on who you're discussing with, you can have the conversation with younger kids and just make it more kid friendly, discuss it in a broader terms about kindness around that. But then if you want to have it with high school kids, you can really dive into some of those social constructs and issues and really unpack that. So I'm hoping that it'll resonate with all people, and maybe even some adults that apparently missed the message about treat people the way you want to be treated. I'm pretty sure they taught that to us in like kindergarten, which it like amazes me how simple that is, but how difficult it is for humans sometimes. And you know it, especially when someone treats someone some way, or they're okay with certain people being treated a certain way, but they don't want it to happen to them. Like when the group of like, what was that study where a group of white people were asked if they would be black? They were like, what?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
I wish I could reference like exactly, I would have to look it up again, but yeah, it was a group of people. They were just like, oh. And then the person was like, oh, that should tell you. That should tell you right there. Like, you know, so I'm very proud of that. So it stemmed from me like being in education, working with students, and kind of seeing how these outside influences impact them, and hoping to be able to have like a conversation around it, but a conversation that is enlightening and hopefully helps to move towards a more equitable environment.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. So what specific age range would you say as far as the kids? Is this more like a late elementary school or like middle school level book?
So it's like considered an early chapter book. Because of the context, it would be more of a late elementary middle. So maybe like I'm trying to, so it's supposed to be like 10 to 12-ish, but it might lean more towards like the 7th, 8th grade group. Because early chapters usually falls in that, but I know because of some of the context, so it'll be like late elementary to middle school, as far as like the readability and where it falls. Yes, but hopefully it can be manipulated to have to where it needs to be.
Okay. And so for anyone that would be interested in buying this book, how can they access it?
Yes, well, currently right now, if you go to Instagram, melanin.brown.book, if you follow me on Instagram for Melanin Brown, there's information there about like how you can access it. Right now, it has actually not, the live links have not gone public yet. So right now, people can either contact me directly on that Instagram page to get it, or if they go to my publisher, mascotbooks.com, and type in Melanin Brown Discovers America, you could currently order it from them, and I have heard some people have already got their copies from them. But as far as the pre-sale links, when it officially goes live February 6th, and that will be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a couple of other platforms. And then April 6th is the official national release date.
Wow, yo, it's like so official. Like, wow.
I'm still in shock sometimes. I'm like, what? Is this real?
I don't know why. I've always thought of like the concept of writing a book like being something so like, I don't know, far-fetched. Like, oh my gosh. Like...
I still feel that way, girl. You know, this started as a children's book. So it started as like, you know, children's books would be 30 pages, a couple words per page. So it started with me like with maybe having
some
like
nice visuals
2,000.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
My illustrator Benny, amazing. She's also linked on Instagram on the melanin.brown.book page.
Yeah, very nice illustration.
She is amazing. I'm so happy and fortunate that I found her. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, this started as a children's book, and that was like what, 2,000 words maybe, because I was planning on having like 30 copies.
Awesome.
Yes.
Wow.
Just a little taste.
Yes.
But then because of the context and what I was discussing, and I was really fortunate for this publishing company and for my editors of how they guided me through it as far as structuring, because of the structure, they're like, it would need to be an older like kids book, so an early chapter like leaning towards, because of what I was discussing. So their guidance really helped me turn in like what was supposed to be a children's book from 2,000 words to like 14,000 words. Wow. And that process was difficult for me because I already had it in my mind. Okay, this is what it was. But now they're like, oh, this needs to be like an early chapter book. I'm like, oh, but I already wrote what I want to write. But through that process, like it actually, like I learned a lot as well because I did some more research, just developing the characters. I have a chapter that's dedicated to the African American History Museum, and it's definitely one of my favorite chapters, and I'm very proud of that chapter. But I also got very emotional while writing that chapter, and it means a lot to me as far as that. And thank you again to the African American History Museum for fielding all my questions and everything, because I had to collaborate with them to reach out. But certain passages that is directly actually from like what's displayed in the African American History Museum, like I pulled from them. So I had to like
go there and see it.
Yes. I've been 3 times now, and I still haven't gotten through everything.
Really? Dang. Okay.
Yeah. So that process in itself in writing, that was a challenge for me. So originally I was thinking it'll take like 6 months, and ended up being a 2-year process.
Wow.
But finally, what was that? So it was like, I think I started in November of 2017. So it was almost 2018. No, it was November 2018. So it was almost 2019, and then 2020. No, it was 2017. It was 2 years. So now, yeah.
That's crazy. But hey, it's finally here.
Yes.
It's finally here. So definitely, I'm going to leave the Instagram for the page in the video and in the pinned comment under this video, so y'all can definitely check that out. Well, Candice, that was pretty much all the questions I had for you. Thanks again for agreeing to do this interview with me.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. So I'm definitely going to be bringing on more and more people this month as well. Y'all know, like I said in my previous video, that this month I was going to be doing interviews with both Dominicans and like certain Black people in celebration of both Black History Month and Dominican Independence Month.
Hey.
So yeah, I was really, really happy to have my girl Candice here. And maybe you'll be able to come on to some more of my live streams in the future.
Yes, I would love that. As long as I'm a welcome. Sometimes I can be opinionated, but I try to keep it.
Girl, that's nothing. You should see how most of the men that come.
I've seen some of the men there. I've been like, oh, all right now. All that testosterone is
we need some more much. Female energy. We need some more girls up in here. Girl. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Candice's book. Check out the Instagram. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.